Exactly. And it gets even weirder. At the trial itself, as I represented myself, it was just a traffic ticket, and then when I lost and when I appealed it to the district court, then I hired an attorney, and that's a whole other story.
Now,
a whole other house of horrors.
Can I just ask you real quick, as far as the official report, the officer is clearly placing the accident on the other driver.
No, not at all.
Not at all.
That's not what happened. No. Okay, so, when we had the accident, it was rush hour. And I was stuck in an intersection, and there's two sets of stoplights across from me, across the intersection. There's one directly across from me.
Sure.
Where driver number 2 was, who didn't hit me. He's like directly across from me. And then there's another stoplight 330 feet further back behind driver number 2, where driver number 1 began, before he overtook driver 2, who was directly across from me, and 330 feet away in front of him. Before then, he ran into me.
Gotcha.
It's just bizarre.
Mm-hmm.
Clearly, it was a fault. Plus, I was almost like all the way through the intersection. It was rush hour traffic. I was stuck. Nobody's even going that fast. But people don't go in rush hour. It's all like gridlock.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This guy accelerated into me. Accelerated into me, pushed my quad cap sideways. Caused $10,000 worth of damage. And it was limited because I had a still step-up side rail on the thing, But so the police came. When the police responded, I had a call. I had no worries about being ticketed or anything, and so they had us move our vehicles without preserving any of the evidence or anything. They just had us move our vehicles to another location down the street and out, so you couldn't see the side of the accident. And then another officer appears who was never at the site of the accident itself, never saw the accident scene. And when he shows up, he goes and talks to these 2 people who were illegal. And they both say, "Oh, that guy ran a red light." After one didn't have ID, and the other one lied about being insured.
Are there any traffic?
So the police officer came up. Mm-hmm.
Were there any traffic cams that you could do a FOIA?
No,
okay,
they weren't.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
okay.
So we have traffic cams, but our Department of Transportation, they claim they don't keep that footage.
Okay.
So I tried to get it, you couldn't get it. So the officer approaches me and he says, asked me what happened. I said, this guy accelerated into me while I was stuck in the intersection and hit me. He goes, okay. He goes, well, those 2 guys both say that you ran a red light, so I'm just going to give you the ticket. So I was like, was the guy even insured? He goes, well, he's calling his wife. And I was just thinking, he's calling his wife. That's not what the statute says.
No.
It says you got to have the physical proof. So he just gave me the ticket. That's why I ended up fighting the ticket, right? That's how it began.
Sure.
Okay. Which all seems normal. Okay. Then it turns out that the city where this happened, that they have a contract out for prosecution of traffic infractions to a private firm. And part of the purpose of doing that is because they thought it would cost more to hire personnel to staff their city and run their justice court than to contract it out privately.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, this company that they contracted to, it's Cowdell & Woolley. Cowdell & Woolley, before they were Cowdell & Woolley, the prosecution firm, prosecuting 5,000 traffic tickets a month in 12 cities. They were courtcms.com, which they still are. And Cowdell & Woolley are 2 IT genius guys who graduated from BYU who had a IT firm that specialized in database design and records collection. And they made databases for courts court management systems and for police.
They didn't know
to manage records.
They didn't know Debbie Wasserman Schultz, did they? No, they weren't.
I don't know. But part of the selling point, why cities decide to go with them, is because this prosecution firm rebranded after 15 years of running an IT firm, specializing in records collection and data, is that it would be cheaper in the cost of production for traffic tickets, or just still a criminal case against a traffic ticket, for what's required or called the production of disclosure. The disclosure that has to be given to you under the Constitution, which is part of the due process laws. There's a federal part and there's a state part. But so, don't you think that when the police officer showed up, they would have known that the one guy that was driving without a license had 4 tickets before this using different names, and that the guy who hit me had the convictions for not being insured? And plus, the officer did try to check. We have a system here called Insure Right. It's a privatized database company that maintains a master database on everyone who was insured. And all the state cruisers, they plug into it when there's an accident. They plug into it. And,
that was actually one of my questions that I was actually going to ask. Not that specific system, but I was going to ask. I've never seen a traffic stop happen that my specific information wasn't vetted, and I just. And that's correct. That's part of the story that sounds so fantastic to me, is that it worked in such one way. One way it worked so well for people who can't even provide their own identification. But for you, following all the rules, everything. Right. And another thing I found incredible, and I'm going to let you get back to it, but I just one of these. Gentleman couldn't even provide an identification to the police officer, but they're going to use his testimony in court. Correct. That is fantastic. They end up prosecuting me. Yeah, they end up prosecuting me solely with the testimony from 2 witnesses, both who are here illegally in the country. One who's been driving in Utah since 2009 without ever obtaining a license, who, by the time I go to the traffic court, he has another ticket for the same thing. So he's got 6, more than 6 tickets, but 6 tickets just with respect to driving without specifically driving without ever obtaining a license. Since 2009. And those tickets, 6 of them, have been issued in 4 different names. Now, he kept the same date of birth, but he gave different names, name variations of his name. What about socials, things like that? What social? Okay. The guy didn't have any ID. Well, I gotcha. But there was no ID at all. No, not only not any ID, but no driver's license. No document. Here, what happened is, because in sanctuary cities, because of this relaxed tier that they did, and this really comes from Obama. This is a fact, because I found this out from one of the prosecutors in the case. Yeah. But Obama had issued executive orders that laxed the requirements on ID and verification and all these other things. And so it literally created, and Obama's supposed to be a constitutional attorney, so he would goddamn well know about the 14th Amendment, about applying the same law equally among people, so you don't create the discrimination as a class. Because under the 14th Amendment, you discriminate. If you give you enforce a law arbitrarily with one person at the very same scene, and then you don't enforce it with the other person,
That is a form of discrimination, because then you have not applied the law equally. It's Absolutely. Not an equal protection under the law.
It's a complete failure of the law, is what it is.
Yes.
It is, is a complete failure.
Well, that's what happened. That's exactly what happened in my case. These two guys. And the other one, more importantly, was like, how would this courtcms.com or this Cowdell and Woolley, who the selling point of their software package, right? Their prosecution services come with the management of the court system, the docket, the scheduling, the records that they've amalgamated from all over the state.
Do they collect?
That's the selling point.
Do they? Mm-hmm. They actually collect it? I assume it's basically the traffic tickets are given, the speeding infractions are given, and then usually on the ticket they say, pay your fine online, and you can.
I don't mean about the collection of the money.
Okay,
I'm talking about the collection, the amalgamation of all data, public record data.
Gotcha.
Statewide. So, when you're in a case, part of due process, you have the right to question your accusers if they're going to testify against you. You have the right to question them about their integrity and their character. But you have the right to know if they've been arrested for certain things that would cast their testimony as false. Or if they have a penchant to lie. Well, in this particular case, 3 convictions for falsifying information to the police would tend to make you appear that you were not truthful. Well, none of that was provided in the first traffic court. None of the disclosure, the required Brady disclosure, none of it. And and their company, that's what they do. Mm-hmm. But more importantly, it was rigged. It was stacked from the very beginning for somehow. And that's what I'm trying to get at. The overall thing here is, it's not a conspiracy theory. It's human nature. This is a company that, let's say that there are certain people in your community who politically you don't like. Outspoken people. And I have a record here that it cannot be matched by the amount of information I put out. It can only be matched by someone like Alex Jones. But the stuff that I put out is different, completely different. And I've done that for years, okay?
You're very well
spoken. So what if...
Very well spoken.
Okay, what if you get this web of data somehow? They're not actively out looking for you. Nobody's coming for you. No one's looking for you. But it's data. It's an algorithm. Okay. What if you happen to one day just have an incident in one of the towns where these people run the data network, and you're flagged immediately? And from that very moment, I never had a chance at all. And I didn't have a chance because this went on for a year, right? And even when I appealed the case, and I went to the district court, and by then they had put a different prosecutor on it, and they withheld the Brady disclosure until 1 month before trial. After they had falsified to the judge in the district court that they had given me disclosure in the justice court. And if that had been the case, why then did they give me the records of conviction on the 28th of October of 2016 when my case was on the 2nd of December of 2016? Right. 1 month before trial, in complete violation of the rules of criminal procedure, which mirror the rules of criminal procedure in the federal court. And the requirement of the prosecution to have an ongoing, sustained requirement to disclose, and to disclose all known data that can impeach the character of a witness at the time of arraignment. Well, that never happened in the first issue, in the first court. I made a record of it in the district court. And then to get out of that, there's so many pieces I'm not even telling you. I'm just like giving you the highlights.
Oh yeah,
okay?
I gotcha. And yeah. I'm assuming you've argued. Yeah. You went in, I'm assuming, and argued this to the judge